Everybody wants to be a part of the culture.
Until it's time to be diverse, equitable, and inclusive.
So we're having the uncomfortable conversations needed to spark the change.
Right here, right now.
We're your hosts, Kai Devereaux Lawson.
And I'm Simeon Coker.
And we say all the things you wouldn't.
Welcome back to the Mixed Company Podcast.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. Simeon, it's the second episode for our new season.
I'm proud of us.
Our Serena break from, it's not even Serena break because Serena evolved, but we're on a Beyonce break. Serena said, I'm done.
Serena said, I have a whole new life.
Right.
I'm birthing.
Right. Or maybe it's a Michelle Obama glow up. Like we finished the first part and now we are badder and better than ever.
Sure is.
Latest
a badder sabbatical.
Yeah.
It's
a badder sabbatical.
A sabbatical.
And the best part about it is already on our second episode, we're diving in with a special guest who, by the way, shout out to text messages at 9:00 in the morning. Because that's where the best ideas come from. And we have the luxury and opportunity of having the amazing, the immaculate, the round of applause for the baddest to ever do it, Liv Lewis, joining us today.
What it do?
You have to.
Do what it do.
If I don't introduce you like that, who will? Who will? If we don't talk about
I'm taking you everywhere. I'm gonna say go. And then I'll interact with you.
This is how, in my mind, this is how people were being introduced as they walked through the doors of Bella Noche. Shout out to those of you that remember Bella Noche and everything is different. But this is how we all get introduced when we go to Bella Noche. Liv, how are you?
Word.
You know, I'm with you guys. I am great. Life is generous. I love you guys. Thank you for what you guys do. Thank you for being family. Thank you for my random text messages, this emojis. I speak in emojis.
Because I speak in emojis. I speak with my face, and like everybody can't always see my face.
Yes,
my eyes literally did that. Like, so to give you context, if you're listening, literally, Simeon and I planned to record today, and there's so much going on that I was like, well, what are we about to talk about? And that's what I woke up on my mind with. And, you know, the way my Lord works, the way my universe works, way whatever you believe in works for you, but works for me. Liv literally texted me this morning talking about, you know what we need to talk about? This would be a good podcast episode. And I was like, no, you have not because you asked not. And if you need a podcast episode idea, you got to open it up to.
So crazy. So crazy. I was driving and I was running things. I was solving things in my head. I was like, this could make a good. And I said,
so I'm excited to talk about that, guys. We're gonna get into a conversation around leadership, around how emotionally taxing and exhausting, but also I'm sure there are some points, Liv, for you, Simeon, for you, sometimes for me, where it's fulfilling, but it is emotionally energy inducing. Like it takes a lot to be a leader, and it takes a lot to be a leader of color. But let me take it a step further. It takes a lot to be a Black leader in this business, especially in spaces that traditionally are not welcoming of just who are of our presence. So
can I nuance that for you?
What was that?
Can I nuance that for you?
Go ahead.
To be a Black leader that is also cognizant of what needs to be done. Because there are some who don't care. And so they may be dealing with emotional labor in covering themselves. But I think because everyone on this call, because we all know each other personally, have an investment in making sure that the spaces that we exist in for ourselves are safe, but also we care about other people. So we want to make it safe for them. The labor is that much harder because it's not just for self.
Be care.
Let me add to that, because there's a reason why we feel this way, at least on this call, right? We're amongst friends, amongst mixed company, because we were raised right.
I mean, my mama said, and you know, I'm African, so it's an extra.
We were raised right, to be considerate of the people in front of you, behind you, to the side of you, to the left of you, the ones that are coming before you, after you. And that consideration and accountability to our responsibilities hurts.
Oh, yeah.
It's a weight.
It is. But Liv, I'm not sure if you've listened to the show before.
She's been here before. It's a welcome back.
It's a welcome back. I've been here. What, Ad Club?
Yes, but that was a different format. So that was Mixed Company Ad Club. But this is a little bit different, Liv. So the way we do the show is we always start with some current news, some current events, with our dope shit and our ain't shit segment, where we get to talk about what's happening in advertising, entertainment, culture, crypto, even. What is going on in the world that you are vibing all the way high with, or that they need to be told that they are not shit. Right. I will go first, and I actually want to give a dope shit shout out to the folks at the Minnesota Interactive Marketing Association, MEMA. I am actually going to be kicking it with them in Minneapolis. Shout out to Jimmy Jazz, Janet Jackson, Prince, like the whole 1980s flavor. Means a lot. But I'll be joining them for their annual keynote on March 30th, to really just talk about some of the things that I've been mulling over the last couple years, which is, y'all, we need to take our jobs a little bit more seriously in marketing. We go through this thing that happens when we are getting emotional, when it is a little heavy, where we try to tell ourselves like, well, we're not saving lives, we're not curing cancer, it's not really that important. But the reality is, the more I look at the news, the more I look at media in general, the more I look at people outside, I recognize the impact that we have and how much has shifted in culture since I've at least been in this business. We've gone from not having a lot of Black faces or colorful faces in commercials, and we're a little bit more considerate about that now. We've gone from a place where you had to be a size 0 to be casted for anything, and thank God for me and my love for food and the weight gain over the last 15 years. But people that are sized a little bit closer to what I look like are on TV. But I also see, from the negative impacts of it, where we've kind of shooed away the importance of journalism in media, and how that has translated to this fake news culture that we've kind of bred, where you don't need to be rooted in facts. It's really just about how you feelings over facts is new. Yeah. And that has transpired into how we see our politics. So there's a lot to go on there. I'm really going to get into it and say the things. My hope is I don't get fired from my job, or that I don't get banned from Minneapolis or Minnesota. But I'm excited to see all the folks I haven't seen in the last 5 years. And also excited to just say all the things that no one ever would, because y'all scared.
Word. Much necessary.
Absolutely. Anybody got a dope shit or ain't shit?
I have two. I'm going to start with the dope shit, because I think today may get a little heavy. And Levi's is celebrating their 150th year anniversary, and we're all lovers of the Caribbean and part of the Caribbean culture here.
I already know where you're going. So dope.
One of their spots, which is called One Influential Island in the Greatest Story Ever Worn, Precious Cargo, is centered around a story of Jamaican fishermen who imported 501 Levi's jeans into Jamaica in the 70s. And I think it's one of the dopest spots that I've seen in
I gotta go look at it.
A long time.
Wow, a long time. I saw what I was saying, something. A long time.
Yeah.
I said long time when I saw it. It was so good.
Really? Who did the work?
Joker.
Yeah, I think it's Joker. Yeah, but Melina Matsoukas is the director, so I'm gonna focus on that.
Got you.
But the soundtrack, they used like Toots and the Maytals, 5446 was my number. The styling of it, like all of it felt authentic. It was like looking at our Jamaican uncles and grandmas and grandpas, like in their youth, just like being the stewards of the culture that gave reggae and oxtails and all of that good shit to the world. And so that has been giving me joy every time it pops up in my my YouTube feed. I actually sit there and watch it again because it's just that, like, it's filling. It's one of those things that I think keeps us doing this work, because we hope for the opportunity to do work where we get to not just show representation, but get down into the nuance. Because I think some people will watch that spot and they're like, oh, this is fun. Look at the Jamaicans doing the reggae. Right?
Well, here's the thing. Well, here's the thing about that spot in particular, and I really hope everybody goes to look at it. Because that I actually saw that shortly before I saw Rihanna's Run This Town spot from Apple for the Super Bowl. So that came out around the same time. But here's the nuance that I said, y'all know, and this is strictly for my diaspora folks, those who have families in a place that you may or may not call back home. Simeon, the drum, sending the drum,
the barrels
overseas to your family with
auditing them
in the barrels. All of it in there, because you have to send it back. That to me was like the huge nuance. That's how I knew it was real, because I was like, that's how we get stuff. That's how your cousins know that these are the jeans we're wearing. That's how your uncle them know these are the shoes we're wearing. That's how they get the TVs. That's how they get. It's the traveling of the drum over the seas is so important to understand, like, the African diaspora. And I'm sure other people do it too, but that is the question. Like, send me something back. Make sure you send something. Oh, you're coming? Make sure you bring something with you. Like, that is a part of the culture. And it was so nuanced in a way where, like, you could look at it like, oh yeah, that's how they got the jeans. But that's also a very specific experience that happens when you have family from abroad. So I loved it for that reason.
Yeah, I when I'm creating work like that, I usually call it like a cultural beacon, because even if you're listen, I'm here all day. That's why they pay me money.
You know, I wrote that down. If you see that in a deck later, I'll credit you.
The culture
like I live in East Flatbush, right? And so there are moments where I'm like looking for specific things, and if I see a barrel inside of the grocery store, inside of the supermarket, I know that there's like Pelori flour in there somewhere, right? And so to bring those into a spot, and I think that's part of the reason for diversity. When when people talk about the business case for it, is that you can't research that. No, you can't like Google somebody sat back home.
But I love that though, because that means, one, someone was at the seat of the table. Two, someone was senior enough to push that forward. Three, someone allowed it and said, no, this needs to be here, because then that anchors the fact that we do have that wink to my Jamaican brethren, right? Like, so like when I think about, and it's hard for me to watch things now because I'm not a consumer, right? Like I'm already like, I can never turn off because I'm like, that was shot. Like my kids are like, Mom, But I love what that signals for us marketers in the room. And I love culture because you knew what it took to get that to the final cut. Yeah.
And then on top of it, to also green light saying we're going to reach out to, pay, and bring aboard Melina. Y'all don't understand the hard, because there's so many times sitting at the table where somebody will say, yeah, she's cool, but I know this other guy. My friend actually got an Oscar. So he's got an Oscar. Okay, he's got an Academy Award. So actually that's who we should like.
Yeah.
Beautiful work.
Yeah. Beautiful work. Yeah. You brought up the Oscars. Where y'all at? Is it a dope or it ain't? I didn't watch.
That was so funny. It was ain't shit.
Yeah, it was ain't shit. I just caught the recaps. I mean, I think ultimately at the end of the day with these award shows that I think ultimately we give a lot of value to because of their legacy. I was having a conversation with my coach yesterday, shout out to Ronnie Dickerson, where, in these moments of trying to temper our emotions, making sure that we're understanding the difference between what we value and what we're worth. And I think a lot of the negative reaction, or our reaction, is still because we look to some of these award shows to determine our worth. Because ultimately, in the business that we're in, back to the director, right? When they're trying to make a decision around who to hire and who to pay what, they also look to these award shows for the validation, right? Oh, well, if this is an Academy Award winner, or if this is a Cannes winner, then of course they're worth the money and they're worth the investment and they're worth the risk. And I think ultimately, like, we can still value those shows, but making sure that, like, we're still walking away with the understanding that we can only give ourselves the worth that we desire. And so shout out to the NAACP Awards this year, because it was very star-studded for, like, versus a couple of years.
I was like, get it?
Okay. Yeah, where you saw everyone from the A-list Black celebrities to the regular influencers. And so I think we're also in a moment where we're probably going to see that again at the BET Awards, where it's going, maybe Beyonce will come back, because there was a moment when she opened it every year for a minute. And so I think that there is, with everything that happened in 2020, that there's also an awakening again amongst us to make sure that we're showing up for each other and we're giving value to the things that are our legacy.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna chase that dope shit with the ain't shit, which is gonna be real quick. But as we all know, SVB crashed. And,
I was just on the phone with my financial advisor. Absolutely.
The peoples are not doing okay, but there was a Wall Street Journal opinion article that came out that insinuated that the crash was due to the company focusing on diversity and
woke capitalism. They're telling us it's gonna kill us.
Yeah, I think that the big takeaway is, in 2023, y'all are still not shit, and y'all still think that.
Don't be pointing the finger at me. I'm dodging.
They still think that the idea of having diverse opinions in the table, or valuing diverse opinions, or diversity of thought, or having people who are not white cis heterosexual men at the table is going to devalue the output of the business, and it's somehow going to negatively affect the business. And I just want to say, the people who were at the table, it wasn't diverse, so they failed. A non-homogenous group of people failed. And so I don't think that pointing the finger at diversity is even a part of the conversation, because ultimately the people at the table weren't diverse. They failed on their own accord.
What they were saying, so I picked up on that too, and I was listening to the Daily. Shout out to the New York Times. Well, some of y'all, not everybody.
100%. Yeah, well,
some of them. But definitely the Daily team. And they were talking about woke capitalism, ESG, and how DE&I, sustainability, and all of that is becoming the new target of the let's call them the ultra conservative, because I don't think that every conservative is like that. I just think most of them are. And so part of it is that they're saying that by banks and other businesses valuing diversity, social impact causes as a part of business, it's hindering business from actually getting done, because we should just be here to make money anyway. Is this not capitalism? Are we just not here to make money? And so by putting boundaries in place where you do have to focus on your gender ratios, your ethnic ratios, ensuring that you're not adding too much more carbon to the atmosphere, and that you're growing trees when you print paper or whatever, that somehow doing that is getting in the way of us focusing on what's best for our investments and making money. And so therefore, by you and your ESG getting in the way of capitalism, it's all your fault that the bank crashed, because the bank shouldn't be asking us about sustainability and racism. They should just be giving us money to make more of it. My God, if I've never seen I've never seen blame or new reasons for blame, just be made up so quickly. Like it's everybody but us. It's because you care so much that we failed. Because you care so much that the bank failed. No, the bank failed because we've been in a state of teetering into recession since 2000 and since the beginning of 2020, since the end of 2019, if we really look at it. And for everybody that was out here benefiting off of those PPP loans, and I'm specifically talking about these same conservatives who were taking money that was being dished out in that economy, that's contributed to our inflation. The inflation has contributed to how people are able to borrow, businesses and people are able to borrow money, and that has devalued all of these damn banks. Yeah. So, period. It's y'all. It's not, well, I gotta stop saying us. I don't know, according to my financial advisor, that the us that I have in my head is the us.
Us is real.
but
talk about.
But I'm talking about like the ethereal us, the community. It's not our fault as a caring community, as a society that is trying to push forward and be more progressive. It's the idea that by somehow saying fuck you to everybody else, make money, that is what breaks a bank like this. And the difference is, thank God, since after the 2008 crash, there are a lot more boundaries in place that we are able to kind of step in before it is total economic collapse. However, don't you dare blame all of the people who are just trying to have the same opportunities that y'all, the ethereal y'all, have had for centuries in this country and in Europe. So there's that.
Yeah.
One reason. Liv, what you got? What's going on in your world?
Well, what was on my spirit this morning was how I take all that's happening and infuse it into my work and infuse it into my teams for the greater good of us. Us that we all know to be true. And I started to kind of think about that. And that's kind of what led me to send you my message, because I was like, because I care, sometimes I risk my emotional mental because I care so hard. And I just wish sometimes I really should just be like, F it, do the crazy shit, but I just can't. And I was at BET Her in Atlanta, and Tashonda, shout out to Tashonda, let me get her proper name, President and CEO of TIAA, who said, I rent my title, but I own my character. Y'all, she said that. I was like,
I felt that. Tashonda Brown Duckett.
Yes, Tashonda Brown Duckett received the BET Her Awards, and her speech, I was like, should I work for her? Because she was passionate. But what she said, when she said that, it so resonated with me because we work in multicultural and D&I, and because we believe it's the right thing to do, and we're so tethered to this idea that I'm also representing my culture, my community, I fight so hard that I risk my own emotional stability to get them to see, when at the end of the day, there's only but so much that actually they corporate brands can really do. And what is that balance? And as I was trying to reconcile that, I know my character is, I'm gonna say the thing that needs to be said. I'm gonna give you all the plays. I'm gonna tell you this is what you should do. What you take with that, that's on you. And that's how I've been able to kind of reconcile that in my head, with the balance of doing the right thing, fighting the fight, but at the end of the day, knowing there's only so much I can do. And when she said, my character is mine, but I rent my title, it was like the piece I needed to sleep, because she understood the role she had to play, but at the end of the day, her character would never be tarnished because of the role. And I continue to climb and be in these rooms, I realized that what I do is not who I am. And sometimes I think in our position, we mix the two. And for emotional stability, you have to pull that apart for the greater good of your emotional stability.
For sure. It's so interesting. And with that, like, let's go ahead and start talking about it. So just to set it up for you guys, we're like, the emotional labor, that's what we want to talk about. The emotional labor as a leader that is required to do this work, that is required to be both considerate but also revenue generating, that requires you to work within the confines of what exists while also pushing the agenda of what is to come or what should be progressively for this industry. When you work, I imagine, Liv, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you work at the intersection of capitalism and culture, and you also take on the responsibility and accountability as a culture protector, oftentimes, because our culture is actually who we are, right? Our culture, when I talk about my culture, I mean where my family is from, I mean my hair, I mean my skin, I mean my music, I mean my food, I mean the people that enjoy all of those things that I just mentioned with me. For me, that's my culture. It is very hard to stay disconnected from it. But we have to be able to pay for these damn houses, to be able to pay for these homes. We have to go to the grocery store. We have to enjoy travel and to enjoy whatever luxuries that we can engage with. But like, it's not easy being both business and being a real human. It's really hard to do that.
Yeah.
You know, I think for me, I'm 100% in alignment that it's really hard. And I struggle often with even the idea of separating it because, and Liv, you kind of hit on something earlier where you were talking about like watching the spots and not being able to just like enjoy it because you're constantly in dissecting like, oh shit, that's really cool. I think I know how they did that. I wonder how they did that. And consuming things that become a frame of reference for the work that we do. But I think the thing that in the last couple of months, and I think this has been a sort of a collective effort between my therapist and the coach of creating margins and boundaries and making sure that I'm protecting them. And I think the thing where I've started to come to a resolve is that ultimately, because we were raised the way that we were raised, and I think I mentioned it the other day to you, Kyle, like being such a part of hip hop and a steward of hip hop, and knowing that at the core of it is a protest, right? That this culture that we love was born out of this desire to change the world or make a world in our image. And so if you're a part of it and you really believe these values, and I think that we do because we're in almost, well, you know, we're grown-ups, big age. And big age. We're still adhering to these values, and these values informing our behavior. That where I started to net out is that I can only do what I can do, right? And so when you start, and shout out to Ronnie Dickerson, because like I honestly think that everybody needs a coach, because the thing that she was saying was like everybody needs to do like this energy study, right? Like not necessarily your physical, but like your mental. And I think we spend a lot of time thinking about work, especially when we get to a point where like, damn, this mortgage is mortgaging, and we need to make sure that we're maintaining it. And so we're constantly in this space of like work being in the back of our mind. But I've gotten to this point of I really can only do what I can do. Right. I can only say the thing, and it is up to the person that is hearing the thing to receive it. And if you receive it, maybe I can say it one more time. Maybe we can have this conversation again. But ultimately, there gets to a point where if I'm going to protect myself and have something left for myself at the end of the day, then I have to just exhale and go, it's not going to happen. And if we're talking about a specific job, coming to the realization of, are our values aligned? And I think that the thing that a lot of us are in a constant battle with is values and behaviors. And so if our values aren't aligned, then it's like, all right, real talk with yourself. This mortgage is going to mortgage. Do I want to take the energy and go find another job? Or
can I wait?
Or can I wait? Or can I live off of my savings? And I think when you start getting putting it down on paper. And I think that's been the thing that's been helping me over the last couple of months of writing it down and going, maybe I got a little bit more. I can do this. That has helped me to sort of do less emotional labor and stop stewing over stuff as much, because ultimately the minute that you realize that somebody's values aren't in alignment with yours, and unfortunately many of these companies or the people that are leading us, their values are not, it's easier to say, fuck this shit, let's go to Dumbo House.
Let's go to Dumbo House. Liv, I'd love to get a sense from you, because I almost kind of want to crystallize it for folks, but like, give us an example of where, as a leader, that you have had to, or that you have felt the emotional tax of doing the work and also doing the work.
How long do we have?
You got to pick up your kids.
I do have a hard, you're right. I would say there have been specific, when the murder of George Floyd happened, and I have to anchor it there, it was a different
vibes.
It was so intense, and the intensity was the calls. It was like the begging, come tell us what to do. That it was so much. It was scary because it was like, for real. But then when you start asking questions, you know, the questions about what have you done? What's your internal hallways look like? What's your board look like? What's your ERG situation? To make sure your internal structure is right first before you do the outward consumer facing work, we start to realize, oh, this is just talk. Oh, y'all just, this is just a reaction to what you're seeing, but you don't really want to lean in. You don't really want to do that. And when you're balancing revenue and knowing what your business or what your job is, and whether or not we lean in on this RFP, and it wasn't even RFPs, it was like, here, take the money. And it's like, but thank goodness, at least the company I work for, our values align with mine, where I'm like, nope. And we've been blessed enough to be able to say no to companies that do not align with our values, but also don't have the receipts to say that they can do an outward facing anything. And it's like, until you guys do these internal work, and we've been good about saying these are the things that need to be table stakes within your organization before you can even think about a marketing campaign, talking to the Black diaspora about whatever, right? And so that is the constant emotional struggle for us with, it's not just my mortgage, but there's the company's mortgage and payroll and all of that. And the risk of it all, and the responsibility to do the right thing. And do the right thing is actually one of our core values. And sometimes we've had to pass, and it's hurt.
And I love that. So to crystallize it, and Liv, feel free to add to it if you choose to, but Liv works for one of the most amazing multicultural agencies that exists to date within our industry, and they are prestigious Cannes Lion winners. Like
we are,
and not like go and Emmy, and you guys have Emmys, like
Grand Prix,
Grand Prix. So like, to crystallize that you are a leader, you are an executive at a multicultural agency that also has been awarded lavishly from this industry for the work that you have done in both entertainment and advertising. And yet still with that, you and the team find yourselves in positions where people are asking you for something personal. And I don't think that a lot of our let's call them partners, right? So I can keep myself paying my bills, right? Yeah. The partners that come to us to ask for support in cultural fluency, resonance, understanding the different generations and ethnicities, etc. You're asking us for a piece of us, right? Anytime we're put on it, you are asking me for a piece of my world. And I don't think that they understand the weight of that. And so to ask us, it's like if we were going over to a partner's house and we said, just want to record something with your grandmother. Can I just like have some time with your grandmother? I want your grandmother to teach me some things. And then we go to the grandmother's house, we go in her refrigerator, we take something to drink, and we walk back out. Everybody gonna be mad that you wasted her time. You done took her resources. You done got her excited because she thought she was having company, and now she don't have no company. And it's exploitative. It is always exploitative, but that is emotionally taxing because the nature of the work that we do is to exploit. We exploit to amplify because we either want someone to know more about the thing or to do more because of the thing. And it hurts. It hurts every time I leave DEI. I've been doing DEI as a job since 2019. And since 2019, I always find myself in these spaces where I want to give everybody what they're asking for. I want to change your company, but I can't change your company when there are people who may not be, at the top. Like they're not always even at the top. But if there's anybody at any moment, at any level within an organization that doesn't agree with the thing that you're asking me to do, I can't do it. It's like Power Rangers. It's morphin' time, and we got to move in lockstep. Once we're in the big machine robot person guy, and anybody that's not moving their leg means we can't walk. If you're not moving your arms, we can't walk. And that hurts because it feels often like failure, or it feels like we can't really push forward to success in the corporate sense, corporate capitalistic sense. Like it often feels like a lose-lose.
And I'm so sorry. That's one of the signs. If your leadership is not about what you're trying to do, it was good to see you. Thank you. Have a coffee. You want a snack?
You want a snack? Because that's all I can give right now.
I will say, you could believe, and I've had to talk to CEOs about prepping them for reparations before they get into a call, because they know that's going to be asked of them. And if you're not ready to like be able to have that kind of conversation, and your leadership knows that kind of question is going to be asked, what are we doing here? And there are partners. My approach to relationship is to be able to help you. I need to be able to understand what the brief says, but what's that on the brief? What's that on the brief that I need to know to help surround you with whatever you need to go share? Because a lot of the times the people who we are talking to in counseling have to go sell it themselves. And so if we're not lockstep, if we're not partners for real, is no agency client, then it's not necessarily going to be the best, because it can't be transactional. You're trusting me, and these people, it's their jobs. You're trusting with your livelihood. Help me, help you, right? And so that is actually the shift as I talk to, and I'm not a day-to-day anymore, but that is when you're working with me, we establish that trust, and you understand, oh, she's a different kind of client relations person, because we could be saying something on the phone, but I'm texting you like, it's cute over there, but we're gonna have an offline about some of the things in here. And that actually happens so much in our business, where there's what happens, and then there's the after call, the late night thing, because you want the person that you're partnered with to go do well, because at the end of the day, it signals back to you. That is emotional taxing too, because it's like, Lord, I
gotta protect your front and your back. I gotta watch your side and your side. And
I was watching, Tracy Ellis Ross on The Shop talking about fight so hard to push the program and the initiative, and by the time you're getting ready to execute the thing, you're so tired that like it's not even really going to be great, because you're just like, we're here.
It's like, I not always, because then I probably wouldn't be in the position I am, but I sometimes wish that the roles weren't reversed, but that the culture was reversed, where like the dominant culture, right? Not just the people, but that the people who are using elements of culture to push their products, brands, recruit people into it, that we were actually like pulling from their culture, whatever that is, that we were pulling from their culture and exploiting that area of culture, because I think this is like the one of the very few spaces where we can truly say, like, you don't understand what it's like to be me in this role, because you don't come from a position where the only currency you have is culture. You don't come from a position where your body parts or the shape of your body parts are commodified for commercial usage. And when you don't have that tie, that emotional tie, or that spiritual tie to like things about you that your business is using to make money, you don't understand how like it kills us when we're asked to say something, do something, fix something that is in complete misalignment with who we are as business leaders. And because there are people that will never know what that feels like, and they are still in both macro and micro spaces of power. I specify micro because I think it's important for people to know it's not just CEOs. Like it is your head of project management. It is going to be your head of employee relations. It could be your head of office management. Like anybody that has any access to making something happen or not happen is a person in power. And anytime a person with power asks us to do things in conflict with who we are as people, which is quite often, like brings an emotional pain to being who we are, because now we have to choose between our livelihoods and our integrity. And why do I always have to choose between my livelihood and my integrity? Because my livelihood is actually tied to an actual dollar amount that needs to be satisfied monthly. So it can't just be go get another job. It has to be an equitable or more job. And that's not easy.
No.
I mean, I think one thing too here that I feel like I'm picking up on is that what we often define as personal isn't the same across the board. Right. And I think that's like a big disconnect, because even when we're talking about right now, like the emotional labor of it all, we can use those same words and go have that conversation and somebody just wouldn't get it, because the things it's almost like when you're talking about going into the fridge, right? The idea in our culture, walking into somebody's grandmother's house, not saying hello, going into her fridge and pulling out a drink, drinking it, and then walking out the door is like a cardinal sin.
Yeah, like you
right. So and everybody here is like having heart palpitations just even thinking about walking
into somebody's house and not speaking
and doing that. And so I think that this is often why I feel like one of the things that you're hitting on, Liv, is that it's not taking a pill and everything's okay, right? There has to be this long-term commitment. And for everybody on this call, like, even though we're having this conversation in this brief amount of time, the labor started a long time ago. Like what we're bringing to the table is often can't be quantified, because since the beginning of our careers, or since the time that we started existing in mixed company, whether that was in school, we've been doing a version of this emotional labor, and they haven't had to do it. So when we're walking into these rooms and having these conversations, trying to boil down not even just a lifetime experience, but the lifetime of the culture's experiences into a conversation, I think it's hard for them to understand the magnitude of what it is that we're trying to share and why it is so heavy. And when we think about 2020 as being like this catalyst, and I think it's like at this point, it's like before 2020 and after 2020, the majority of us are extremely tired, because it's not just the conversations that we're having trying to sell through values at work. It's also the conversations of just being other in this world and navigating these spaces where there's a whole group of people who are now who want to have these hearts and minds conversations, but don't want to change the systems that will sustain whatever is changed within hearts and minds.
So let's do two things. Let's do a round robin of calling out things that, let's say, our business partners in general, the whole ad land ecosystem do, that tugs on that emotional labor. And then I want to do another round robin of like, so how do we cope? Because I think, Liv, one of the things I think is an important nuance about this second round of Mixed Company podcast is like, Simeon and I have been looking to you guys. Like you got here before we got here, but now that we're here as like leaders together, it's like, how do we sustain, right? Because as we continue to work to build generational wealth, whether we are entrepreneurs or working for someone, this is always going to be a thing that happens because our culture, the way we live our lives is the thing that gets bought and sold on the capitalistic market, right? So how do we cope as leaders is going to be really important. So let's start with like the things that folks are doing so that they know specifically when you do this, it hurts. Stop doing it. So I'll start. Stop asking to learn more about how you can contribute and do better with your diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging activities if you know damn well that either you or anybody in your organization is going to say no to anything. You have to be 100% ready to say, yes, I have asked for the help and I will receive the help. You cannot say, I'm not going to give money to that. You cannot say, I don't have time to hire for that. You can't say, I don't have the infrastructure to strategize for that. You cannot say, I can't prioritize that right now because we have all of these other things. Because if you are going to say no to anything, it means that you are not ready and you have to be holistically open. So don't ask us for help if you actually are not ready to receive the help. This is not a consultation. This is a shift in culture. Very different. That's mine.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with, and I hope this comes out the right way, requiring access to people's personal space in order for them to achieve success. And I think that has become, we've talked about this before in the past where it's more about the social level. I don't know anything about Tanika. Like, like she doesn't share anything about her life. And I think one of the things that's happened with this new age of working, where we're literally in each other's houses right now as we speak, that it's created this side need of wanting to be a part of someone's life without necessarily doing the work, or creating or understanding yourself in order to make sure that your access is safe for that person. And I think we're seeing a lot more of it, especially now as companies want to say they want to lean into DEI, that they want this unequal access or this weird kind of access to the space of people who aren't part of the dominant culture, and not giving it is having a negative impact on people's careers. And I feel like that's something that needs to be addressed.
I could stop right there. I would say fund the creative idea. Just fund it.
Yeah. Blind and relatively blindly too.
Yeah. But and also making sure that it's equitable, right? So funding the creative idea of non-white people, of LGBTQ, of women, the same way that you fund that
the Gen Pop idea.
The general pop idea.
I can't even say it because
I can say it since I
can live here. So I can live here still.
Right. So we can still live in the lap of luxury.
So we can still, yes, because it is so when you see it in your face, because and you're like, for reals?
For real.
Yeah. It is unequitable in how they fund multicultural ideas and how they want them to perform versus their white counterparts. They want $2 to perform the same way that $200 works, and they want the same results, and it's not equitable. And unfortunately for us, because we have been taught to stretch a dollar, that is a part of our culture, is to figure out how to make it work. Doing that over and over and over again is unfair emotional labor, because we're constantly starting from behind the line, and you're expecting us to get to the finish line at the same time as our counterparts.
And we actually, at the time, not just the dollars, but the timing. And you know what's horrible about it is we kill it.
Yeah. Because what else are we gonna do?
It's so dead. It's done. That it's like, oh, so yeah, you could do it, you know. But it's almost like a catch-22. If you don't be successful, then it's like, well, for not, and then you kill it, then you prove out that it can be done, and so you're stuck in this.
Now cycle. That's the standard. That's the precedent. Yeah. Well, why would I pay you $1 million like I pay everybody else if I know you can?
If I know you can kill it, and so now when I actually have enough time to do something, I'm shook because I'm like,
how do I even
like
already have what I need? What's next? I don't have to fight no more. Now what?
Yeah.
So what about coping, Liv? Like, you know, how do you continue to do this? Like, I know you have reasons to do this. You have people that depend on you, but like, what are your coping mechanisms?
So I take what I call I'm trying to give you guys the right. It's almost kind of like a clarity break. I actually sometimes remove myself from culture where I don't watch certain things. I'm not as engaged in social, and it feels like, oh my God, I'm missing out. But that's the only way I can keep my sanity, because I don't know how to separate being a consumer and a marketer, because I'm always working in this space, that I have to take the clarity break to be able to pour back into myself.
Yep.
And if I miss it, I just happen to miss it, and I'll get the recap, and I have to be okay with the miss. I have to know that there is no social thing. There is no like, oh my God, you missed watching the BET Awards. You have to be okay with not being a part of the conversation to protect your sanity in some cases. I also have been able to remove the emotion. I no longer am so desperate for you to fall in love with my idea, my culture. This is me. I'm giving it to you. I don't take it as a level of rejection anymore. I understand. It's like, somebody here knows so much, the no doesn't even hurt you anymore. It's like, got it, next. And sometimes even when you don't show the emotion of the, okay, thank you. Yep. Oh wait, you don't want to know why? Is it all right?
I don't.
even that level of mental.
I need to hurry up and get to the next. Yes.
Exactly. So I have another call. Thank you for your time. I'll send you the deck. It was good to see you, because even trying to understand why that didn't work, et cetera, is also emotionally taxing as a form of kind of like
I have to
punishment.
What did I do wrong? And maybe if I would have said,
if we would have done this one thing and give me, like, counsel is great, but I already know.
Yeah.
So I've removed the emotion. Other things, I'm going to say it. My team almost looks to me as a person who's going to say the brave, bold thing. Like, I'm almost I'm calling out the elephant in the room. I've been empowered to do it. And in order for me to sleep at night, in order for me to continue, I'm going to say the thing, because that's what you actually want me to say. And then make of it what you want.
Agreed.
I have to. I don't know how to not be that anymore. I think it also comes with just being in the business for so long that I realized I just got to say it. But I also have the emotional intelligence to understand that I'm dealing with humans. And they have something at stake. And there are conversations beyond me that if I don't know it and they're making that decision, I understand their come from. I'm empathetic in that way. And at the end of the day, it's a job.
Right.
unfortunately, but fortunately. And I have had the wisdom, and I've seen it I'm doing this for 20 years, that there comes a point when you realize, oh, you're doing it because it's a bullet on the memo. Got it. Mm-hmm. So by leaning, if I'm not even, I'm doing it right. If I'm like, oh, you'll see me like, oh, like my body shifts. I'm like, okay. And I'll take the note and I move over. I create a space to hold myself. I allow to sit in the hurt, because sometimes I love the idea. Sometimes I so want the partner to do well, and I'm so disappointed in their choice. Yep. And I plan for the aftermath of the hurt. Yep. Like if I have a big presentation, I plan for whatever it's a high or a low, I make room for that. I create boundaries. I have 2 phones. So if
did the song go off in your head, Simeon? Because the song went off and I got 2 phones, one for the and one for the.
I have 2 phones. The work phone, I hide it sometimes intentionally, because I go hard. I don't even know if I'm ghost, because my level of work ethic and how I approach business is just so different that like I have to hide the phone from myself, because there's ideas come at all crazy times. Yeah. And I'm a creative, like I'm an account person, but I think creatively that I have to check it. Even my emails have like, if you get this email at a weird time, don't feel any pressure to respond or engage.
I just needed to get this out.
I just need to get it out. And I don't trust like that, like auto send email. So I'm just going to send it, but trust, I don't expect you to write me back. I just had to get it out because it was just so good.
That's a joke. I love it.
Love it. So, and I stick to my boundaries. I've gotten really good, because once you have to, you hold your boundaries. Like the no is the no, no matter what. Mm-hmm. And it's hard. I struggle with it still. I've been doing this the boundaries have to be the boundaries for your sanity, because creative ideas don't come if you're stressed out, if you're trying to do so, like it's just not going to happen. No. I mean, I can go on, I can elaborate, but
I mean, I love that. I'll share this. Like I had a 2020 was an interesting time, and I had a moment when I was working with Judy Jackson. Shout out to Judy Jackson and everything that she's contributed, not only to this industry but to a lot of professionals that I work with even today, like over the course of her career. And it was August, and it was, we are in the throes of, the others being awakened to police brutality. Mm-hmm. We are in the throes of Lebanon had just had their explosion, and I knew we had offices in Lebanon, and it's still the pandemic and can't go outside, like people outside, but they're still dying like in droves. And so it's like a scary time. And I became so enveloped in just the emotion of being in a role where not only do I need to care about what's happening here, but there's so much happening in the world. And I was, asking Judy, like, I need to get in touch with the people that are in these places in Lebanon, in these places. This is my job. I need to make sure they're okay. And I just became completely overwhelmed. To the point where Judy called me one day and she was like, I need you to take the next 2 weeks off. And I was like, sure, but like, I don't need to. She's like, no, I want you to take 2 weeks off, and I don't want to hear from you. Like, honestly. And it's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's because you're taking on too much. And I think that the part of this story that I don't share with anyone is that I'm so glad I took that time off, because I actually had 2 classmates, two good friends, classmates pass away within days of each other that week. Within those 2 weeks, she gave us off. Wow. And I say all the time, like, I don't know how I would have managed those losses with all of the losses that were not as personal to me leading up to that time. If Judy didn't tell me to take the time off. And what I was crying about during this time was like, how much should I care? Like, I care so much. It is so natural to me to care about everyone and everything. I would give my house up if somebody really needed it for something. And I just kept asking, like, to what end should I be caring? To what capacity should I be caring? And I too was getting coached at the time, and kind of where we landed in answering that for myself was care about the things that you can change. Liv, to your point, what I can change is ensuring people are informed. I can't make anybody do, and I can't always move somebody's hand to do something.
Right.
But I can make sure I say the thing.
Right.
And so for me, how I've been coping since then, because that was a very rough time, it was a very rough month, is just focusing on that. I'm really good at making sure people have the information, making sure they have resources, making sure they know how to cite their sources, making sure that it is clear. I'm a hell of an outline writer. I love an outline and bullet points to make things clear. I can truncate a paragraph into 4 words to make sure that we're like, those are skills that I have. And so that is my boundary. If you choose not to move forward and do the thing that you know is right, that's between you, your God, and your therapist.
Yeah.
But literally changing hearts and minds, absolutely not what I'm focused on. And for me, that has given me some reprieve over the years. Is like, I can only do what I do because I still have to take care of myself. So that's
100%
been my coping since, because I got a big heart. I know I got a slick mouth, but I got a big heart too. And a lot of people don't recognize that, like, that sets us apart from a lot of, everyone doesn't have a heart that big. We can't force them to either, but do what you can. So for me, it's keeping people informed, dropping the mic, and walking away. Also, dropping a mic gives a really good theatrical element to any conversation. So
or just hit leave.
Leave.
Oh my God.
It's a way
to move over.
You can't slam the phone no more.
You can't slam it, so
you can't slam the phone.
Yeah. You also said moving hearts and minds are also trying to make partners happy. I can't make you happy.
I can't make you happy. What
we meet our objective?
You got to be happy with yourself. If you can't make yourself happy, how you going? You can let yourself.
And so that is when I talk to my team. There's this. I'm building leaders. When I don't know about bosses, leaders, they coach, they ask, they rely on goodwill, right? They're like, how am I helping the greater good? They say, let's go. So if I'm building leaders, things I'm giving them are tools to be able to do the work without me. And so when I hear, I just want the client to be happy, I was like, not a job. And it's a lot of the mindset stuff, even as I think about coaching younger women. Like, do you think all of this isn't like, there are little cues that you do to just,
that's so crazy.
Just it's almost like the screen comes down. It's like we're right here with each other. And I'm not here to make you happy. I'm here to understand what are the goals and objectives of your program.
Yeah.
And if I don't know what that is, then we need to figure out that first before I can make anything. So aligning even on that is a boundary and a working principle, because you could just be spinning if we're not all on the same page about where we're going. Yeah.
So what about you? Close out.
Yeah. I would say that the way that I cope is that at this point in my life, I don't expect everyone to get it. I don't expect them to see it the way that I do. I don't expect them to care about it the way that I do, because ultimately my experiences are my own. And that's what allows me to see the world the way that I do it. And so I can't give you my growth. Like, I can't give you my evolution. I can't give you how I've translated certain situations. And so that allows me to give people space and grace to be ignorant, to not be the person that I need them to be, not be the partner that I need them to be in order to achieve the things that I want to achieve in my career. And so when I assess these situations, these engagements, these interactions, it allows me to apply value in like a really objective way, not for the value of myself, but for data points. Because now I can say, like, okay, so this is the data that I get to take away from this situation. I know how you move. I know what type of person you are. I know what type of client you are. I know what type of brand you are, because your words and your behaviors are doing this. They're either in alignment with your values or they're not in alignment with your values. And that ultimately allows me to protect my worth and my sanity. Because if I'm looking at it through that lens, even the no doesn't become a reflection of the value of my work. It doesn't become a reflection of the value of my ideas. It's just that we don't have the same values, and we don't have the same goals, and we don't have the same objectives. And quite frankly, I'm good at what the fuck I do. So if you've walked away from looking at these insights that were gathered to protect you and to grow your brand, and you don't see it the way that I do, cool. Somebody else will. You're creating space for the next opportunity. Abundance.
And this is crazy, because like, Simeon, if we're honest with ourselves, when we started the podcast 5-6 years ago, however many years now, I feel like we've been saying 5-6 years for like 3 years, but whatever. However long as
you know how you wrote that outline for talk points, might need to get to talk points.
Yeah, exactly. But like, when we started this podcast out of that frustration, out of that emotional frustration of not, you know what I'm saying? And like, the growth in that is like this podcast too, like Liv, you sending the text message, us starting the podcast, to be able to have these conversations out loud. Like, somebody's going to hear it. Not everybody's going to do something with it, but like, to say the thing, because, you know, time before any of us were doing this work, there were people who felt like they couldn't say it and they couldn't do it. We have the opportunity to alleviate some of that stress by at least saying it out loud. So I am always grateful for this space. And you all, I've called both of you at many a random times, be like, y'all, what in the hell happening?
And shout out, I don't even know, Timmy, if you know this story, but I got this random text from a guy, and she was like, you got a second? You know, when that always comes, I always like, oh, something's up, right? So she calls like, I'm not sure if you saw this creative, and it was a creative that one of my teams reviewed. And she's like, did you see it? And I was like, no, I didn't see it, but what's up? And when those calls happen, you don't know if it's like, oh, did my team do something? Did the client, like whatever it was, but you approach it with such grace and humility. And like, I just want to let you know, like, you were protecting me, so that I was like, let me go find out what is happening. And I just want to publicly give you your flowers for that, because it could have been like, girl, your team is crazy, but it so wasn't. And my team was fine, and they provided the same level of, but it was just a level of like, let me reach out to a friend to give her a heads up and protect her character, her team, her work, her reputation. And you know, I think I said that to you. If I didn't, I must have been running crazy, but that landed so well. And I always remember that. And I'll always remember that. So shout out to you, boo.
I just be happy you be answering your phone. And we walk those lines. We walk these lines. I've known you for years, longer than where I'm at now. And like, we walk these lines where it's like, again, what am I protecting? Where's my integrity? Is the work more important? Is the relationship more important? How do we help each other? And so having communities, somebody asked before, like, what advice would you give, you know, people coming up in the industry? Of all the advice I give, the primary one is like, create that village. And they don't always have to be in front of you, right? Like, it's a group chat or whatever kids are doing these days. Mine was always a group chat of like, am I crazy? No, we're not crazy. Hey, what would you say if this happened to you? Yeah, you might need to run. That sounds, you know what I'm saying? Like, those spaces of communities where we're able to kind of validate the fuckery that we experience in the day-to-day of being marketers is so important. And like, you reaching out, Liv, us having this platform, all of the people that we engage with really do help with the emotional labor, or help shouldering the weight of the emotional labor, because we are professional manipulators. And just
but don't make it sound like that.
I mean, it's true.
Good in the world.
That's what we do. But like, you know, at some point, like, it gets to your head. So it's really good to be able to blow off some of that steam and air out some of that stress with folks who give a fuck.
Yeah.
And also to your point, we can manipulate the situation to do good at certain moments.
We can.
So
yeah,
it's all about how we use it.
It is.
Yeah. Sometimes we blow it up. I've seen times I'm like, Simeon, I'm about to
air it out. Air it out. Well, listen, this has been a really good convo to a really interesting week for everybody. I haven't spoken to anybody that hasn't said, thank God it's Friday. So shout out to everybody feeling that today or whenever you listen to this. Liv, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being who you are in this industry and the work that you and your team put forth. Sim, I'll see you later.
Later.
I'll see you later.
I don't get the glorious outro, but it's all good.
But also, you guys know where to find us on all of the streaming platforms where you catch your podcast. We be there too. And yeah, it's another episode of Mixed Company Podcast. Holla at y'all later.
Yeah.
Later.
All right. Thanks, Liv.